Number 10. Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh, the man responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, which took 168 lives, was unapologetic to the end. When it came time to choose his last meal, McVeigh's request was almost unsettling in its simplicity: a single pint of mint chocolate chip ice cream. No lavish spread, no indulgence, just ice cream. The choice was chilling, almost as if he were trying to show the world that he felt nothing, even in his final moments. Number 9. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, was one of America's most notorious serial killers, responsible for the brutal deaths of at least 33 young men and boys. As a former manager of 3 KFC restaurants, Gacy's last meal reflected his past life before the darkness took over. He requested a bucket of KFC original recipe chicken, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, strawberries, and a Diet Coke. It was a feast of comfort foods, the kind of meal that might evoke nostalgia for better times. Number 8. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, one of the most infamous serial killers in history, whose charm and intelligence masked a dark, twisted mind, was given the standard last meal in Florida when he declined to make a specific request. The meal included steak, medium rare, eggs, hash browns, toast with butter, milk, coffee, and juice. A breakfast reminiscent of normalcy, perhaps a nod to the life he pretended to lead. However, what's more intriguing is that Bundy reportedly requested a pizza prior to this, but was denied. Was it a genuine craving, or was Bundy always manipulative, trying to make a final statement by asking for something he knew he wouldn't receive? In the end, Bundy's last meal was as unsettlingly ordinary as the double life he led. Number 7. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos, the woman whose story inspired films, documentaries, and intense public debate, was executed in Florida in 2002. Wuornos's crimes, killing 7 men, were driven by a deep-seated rage and a tragic life story that many believed led her to her fate. When it came time for her last meal, Wuornos didn't ask for luxury or excess. She requested just one thing: a simple cup of black coffee. It's a stark, almost poetic choice, one that speaks volumes about her state of mind. Perhaps it was a reflection of the harsh reality she had lived, stripped of any sweetness or indulgence. In the end, it was the bitter black coffee that accompanied her to the other side, a fitting end to a life filled with bitterness. Number 6. Ricky Ray Rector. Ricky Ray Rector's final meal is one of the most bizarre and memorable in death row history. Convicted of murder in Arkansas, Rector was intellectually impaired due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head during his arrest. This injury left him with severe cognitive deficits, which made his trial and execution highly controversial. For his last meal, Rector requested steak, fried chicken, and pecan pie. But the strangest part? He didn't eat the pie. Instead, he told the guards he was saving it for later. It's a haunting moment, reflecting his impaired understanding of the reality he was in. A man about to die, yet somehow still expecting to return for dessert. Number 5. Stephen Wayne Anderson. Stephen Wayne Anderson was a cold-blooded killer with a life filled with violence. Convicted for the murder of an elderly woman during a burglary, Anderson spent years on death row before his execution in California. When it came time to choose his last meal, Anderson opted for a meal as eclectic as it was strange. 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, a hominy corn mixture, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. The combination of food seems almost nonsensical, a mix of comfort foods and oddities. Was Anderson trying to savor different flavors one last time? Or was this his way of exerting control over a life where he had none? The odd pairing of radishes with ice cream leaves one wondering about the man behind the meal. Number 4. Ronnie Lee Gardner. Ronnie Lee Gardner's execution by firing squad in Utah was one of the most high-profile in modern history, due in part to the method of execution he chose. Gardner, convicted of multiple murders, made his last meal an event in itself. He requested lobster tail, steak, apple pie with vanilla ice cream, and a 7-Up. But that wasn't all. Gardner asked to eat this meal while watching the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. His request was granted, and so Gardner spent his final hours indulging in both food and film. Was this a final attempt to escape into a fantasy world, or was it simply a way to stretch out the last moments of his life? Either way, Gardner's last meal was an epic send-off, much like the movies he chose to watch. Number 3. Victor Feguer. Victor Feguer was far from a notorious killer. His crime, a kidnapping and murder, was brutal, but he is more remembered for his last meal than the details of his case. In 1963, Feguer was the last person to be executed in Iowa, and his final request was simple yet profoundly symbolic: a single olive with the pit still in it. Feguer reportedly hoped that an olive tree, a symbol of peace, would grow from his grave. The idea of new life emerging from death, of peace growing out of violence, is a powerful image. The lonely olive with its pit was a final, silent statement, one that leaves a lasting impression of a man seeking redemption, or at least a sliver of hope in his final act. Number 2. Karla Faye Tucker. Karla Faye Tucker's execution in 1998 was historic. It marked the first time Texas had executed a woman since the Civil War. Tucker's case drew massive media attention, particularly due to her conversion to Christianity and her vocal pleas for clemency. Her final meal request was modest: a fruit plate. However, when the time came, she barely touched it, only eating a few bites. Tucker's last words were filled with love and forgiveness, reflecting the profound change she claimed to have experienced while on death row. The uneaten fruit on her plate seemed to symbolize a life cut short, yet transformed, a woman who found peace in the final moments before her execution. Number 1. Lawrence Russell Brewer. Lawrence Russell Brewer, one of the men responsible for the horrific murder of James Byrd Jr., made a final meal request that's infamous for its extravagance and controversy. Brewer asked for a feast: 2 chicken fried steaks, a triple bacon cheeseburger, an omelet, a pound of barbecue, 3 fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, a pint of ice cream, peanut butter fudge, and 3 root beers. But in a shocking twist, Brewer refused to eat any of it. This act of defiance outraged many, leading Texas to abolish the tradition of special last meals. Brewer's choice wasn't just about food. It was one last attempt to manipulate the system, leaving a bitter legacy behind. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.